Halo, selamat malam Bapak Ibu semuanya. Perkenalkan saya Riko Dana, saya yang akan menjadi host untuk sesi MTS malam ini. Untuk malam ini kita setelah vakum 1 bulan kita hadir kembali membawakan MTS yang sangat menarik mengenai digital innovation, global trends, and practices for IT GRC, Cybersecurity, and Privacy. Nah, sebelum masuk ke sesi, kita akan memberikan sedikit ISACA update. Yang pertama itu ISACA update ada untuk
I think we have a technical difficulty, so maybe someone need to
Rifko is
cover.
connected
Bapak
again.
Ibu semuanya. Ya, I already connect again.
Yes, please, Mbak.
Sebelum masuk ke sesi, saya akan memberikan sedikit ISACA update. Untuk bulan Juli ini sampai dengan 31 Juli kita ada promo untuk menjadi hanya setengah harga. Untuk profesional ini dari 145 menjadi 72,5. Ada juga recent graduate maupun student member. Keuntungan untuk menjadi member ini juga bisa diakses di website kita di isaka.org. Untuk selanjutnya kita akan langsung masuk ke sesi dengan event flyer terlampir. Acara dimulai pukul 7 dan rencananya akan berlangsung sampai dengan pukul 20.30. Untuk panduan tata teknis webinar yang pertama, kami himbau untuk kemudahan peserta dalam mengikuti webinar agar peserta menggunakan perangkat yang terkoneksi internet dengan baik. Username yang dipergunakan peserta saat sesi webinar dan sesi quiz harus sama dengan nama saat registrasi. Meeting ID hanya berlaku bagi satu undangan. Mohon untuk tidak meneruskan kepada orang lain. Peserta diperkenankan untuk menyalakan video dengan menampilkan identitas diri masing-masing. Peserta diharapkan untuk menjaga proses webinar agar selalu kondusif dan saling menghormati. Peserta dapat menyampaikan pendapat dan gagasan dengan santun melalui kolom chat ataupun raise hand. Dan untuk e-sertifikat ini akan kita kirimkan H+7 setelah webinar berlangsung melalui email yang terdaftar. Sebelum kita masuk ke perkenalan narasumber, kita akan perkenalkan moderator kita malam ini. Malam ini ada Bapak Erikman Pardamean yang juga sudah bergabung. Halo Pak Erik.
Halo,
Pak Erik merupakan
malam.
Malam Pak Erik. Pak Erik merupakan program director dari ISACA Indonesia Chapter. Beliau juga merupakan partner dari RSM Indonesia, memiliki pengalaman sebagai eksekutif tim di ISACA Indonesia untuk periode sebelumnya, dan sekarang menjadi director untuk periode 2023 sampai 2025. Pernah menjadi guest lecturer di Singapore Management University, merupakan regional audit manager dari APAC, dan juga memiliki pendidikan lulusan dari Information System di Miss University. Untuk selanjutnya, perkenalan narasumber kita malam ini akan diperkenalkan oleh Pak Erik. Pak Erik, waktu dan tempat saya persilahkan.
Ya, terima kasih Mbak Riko. Ya, rekan-rekan untuk selamat malam, Bapak Ibu, rekan-rekan member ISACA yang saya hormati, juga board member ISACA Indonesia, para Raki, dan segenap partisipan. Berikut adalah speaker profile. Malam ini kita akan mengundang Marek Kosmowski. Beliau adalah Head Digital and Innovation, Director Teknologi Consulting dari Protiviti Singapore dan Southeast Asia. Oke. Sebelum di Protiviti, beliau juga merupakan berposisi sebagai director, sebagai digital PEX di Asia Pacific Lead di Bank UBS. Sebelumnya juga adalah Head of Business Consulting and Digital at Capco Singapore, dan berposisi manager di Manajemen Consulting. Dan beliau adalah lulusan dari Business Management di Cardiff University. Oke. Beliau ini, mohon izin Bapak Ibu untuk saya share both in bahasa and in English. I'm also thrilled to introduce our esteemed speaker, Marek Kosmowski, here. At the first moment, we would like to extend warmest congratulations on the remarkable achievement for being awarded as a Rising Star 2023 by the Consulting Magazine, an exceptional award in consulting, recognition as one of the digital leaders focused on the adoption of innovative technology. Marek, we are truly privileged to have you here tonight to share your expertise with us.
Terima kasih and selamat malam, but actually the privilege is mine. I'm thrilled to be talking here at ISACA Indonesia, and I really appreciate the invitation. So really thank you to you, Paraki, Erikman, and the whole ISACA team, and also all of the members. I really appreciate it, and actually the thanks go to you, and I'm actually thrilled. I hope that by the end of this presentation, you'll be happy that you actually invested your time in listening to me. So I hope that I can deliver for you. And again, thank you very much for having me.
Sure. Thank you so much for the greetings. Okay, before we started, is there any other matters or update from you, Mbak Rifko?
Sebelum dimulai, kita akan dengarkan sambutan terlebih dahulu, Pak, dari Bapak Presiden kita, Pak Raki.
Oke.
Pak Syaraki Syarayut, untuk waktu dan tempat kami persilahkan.
Baik, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat malam, Bapak Ibu semua. Selamat datang di MTS yang kita lakukan setiap bulan. Alhamdulillah kita bisa melakukan lagi di bulan ini. Sorry Pak Marek, I will be talking in bahasa for like 1 minute.
No problem, Pak.
Ya, and jadi MTS ini kita selalu upayakan dilakukan setiap bulan dan kita selalu mendatangkan pembicara-pembicara baik lokal maupun internasional. Jadi terima kasih atas kehadirannya. Tentu fokus kita adalah terus memberikan yang terbaik bagi member ISACA Indonesia dan juga bagi komunitas IT GRC, Cybersecurity dan Data Privacy di Indonesia, sehingga tentunya kami selalu mencoba memberikan hal-hal yang terupdate dan juga positif. Dan alhamdulillah hari ini kita kedatangan our great speaker, Pak Marek Kosmowski. Pak Marek Kosmowski is a friend of mine. We've been know each other for like 3 years, ya Pak Marek. And I believe he is one of the best technology consultant that I know so far. So would love to hear insights from you, Pak Marek, about what is happening in the world, what is happening especially in Southeast Asia maybe. I believe you have a lot of information, insights regarding the update in Southeast Asia. And we in Indonesia, we suffer a lot of issues related to technology like cybersecurity issue, new regulation related to data protection and everything. So I think it's also good to know what is happening outside Indonesia. So we can also learn from your insights and improve in what we are doing in Indonesia. I think that's all, Ibu Rifko, Pak Marek, Pak Erik. Again, thank you, Pak Marek, for your time. I know you are very, very busy. And everyone, if you want to say hi to Marek, just wave your hand or text in the chat box. Pak Marek is really love Southeast Asia, especially Indonesia, ya Pak Marek. He's been here for a lot of time, so he can also share about his experience in Indonesia. Thank you again, Pak Marek, Pak Erik.
Thank you, Paraki.
Paraki.
And Paraki, I'll correct you. It's actually almost 4 years now.
Oh, almost 4 years. Okay.
4 years, and I've been I've been 8 years in Southeast Asia,
Okay.
with fair amount of time also in Indonesia, and absolutely love the place. And once again, great to be talking to members of ISACA Indonesia, and I really appreciate it. So I think on that note, Erikman, can I just screen share? Can we jump
Yes,
to?
please. Yes, please, Marek.
Okay. Just
Paraki, pardon me. Maybe one more fun fact about Marek. Paraki. Basically, he is
Yeah.
not only the digital expert, ya, Pak, but he's also a beer expert and also co-founder of Polanin Beer, a Polish craft beer. So, Pak Marek, I personally really look forward for the first bottle landing in Indonesia, Pak.
Definitely already happening, an alcohol-free one as well for those who don't consume alcohol. So we're inclusive always with everyone. So thank you for that note. I'm just going to screen share the presentation, and I'll go into full screen mode. So at any point, if the presentation drops or anything, please unmute yourself and just tell me, because I won't be able to see it. I might see it, but you might not see it if something happens, right? So just give me a shout in the best way. Okay, so let's just jump. Let me just go to full screen. Please let me know once you can see it in full screen.
Yes, we can see, Pak Marek.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So let's just start. So once again, thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time. I won't be going through the introductions anymore, but one thing I wanted to highlight here, that it's a presentation by myself. I'm obviously part of Protiviti. I'm also a member of ISACA in a different part of the world, but I think it's time to move my membership to Indonesia for that. And just to mention the topic, we're going to look at digital innovation, and I'll mention to you what we have under that, and we'll look at the global trends, practices, and the impact on IT, GRC, cybersecurity, and privacy. We won't be able to go in very deep into all of those topics, and I want to leave enough time also for QA, but let's just jump to it. And please, if you have questions, park them for the QA. I will try to answer as many as I can. If I can't answer them here, you can always pass them through the ISACA team, and we'll respond via email, right? So let's kick off. Okay, so what are we seeing? First thing, nothing new probably to you, but we're having heavy investments and focus on one, digital, and people are putting lots of stuff in here in terms of digital. Okay, so what's in it? It could be your UX UI, using different apps, going really cloud native, really digitally native, removing your brick and mortar if you're in any industry as well, and really delivering stuff through digital means as well. That's one. Second, artificial intelligence. Everyone's talking chat GPT, artificial intelligence, self-driving cars. We're spending a lot of money and all of that. So revolution 4.0, industrial revolution 4.0, lots of things happening in that space. And also data, right? If you look at it, artificial intelligence and digital without data doesn't work, right? You will not have artificial intelligence, you will not have machine learning, and you will not even have digital if we don't have data. So actually, someone once said that whoever possesses the data controls the world. And I think we're actually getting to the point that the data is crucial, and we traded parts of our privacy, and we traded our old paper information for everything that's centralized. We're moving towards convenience, instant access, ability to do a lot of things, but all of that only works if we have data, and also brings a lot of new issues as well. And just one thing I want to mention to you, all of those three, people look at them quite often only from the positive side. Great, they are enablers, they enable industries, they enable customers, they enable, depending which industry you are, they enable you to deliver, but also all of those create new areas of risk, new areas of threat, and they also provide new tools for attackers, as well as I would say malignant parties, to take advantage of all of those. So we're making our life easier, and we're making industries easier with all of those, and life and everything, but also I would say the cybersecurity, cyber attackers, also any parties that want to do us harm are actually using those as well, and they also have access. So I think it's both a great enabler, all of those, but also create some new risks and threats for us. So what are we seeing? On the industry view, I'm going to go through through a few industries. Let me just run my stopwatch so I know where I am with time. Few industries, because I'm sure we have people from multiple industries here on the call. I will call out a few industries just to give you a bit more info on now, focusing first on digital. So financial services. So what we're seeing in terms of digitalization in the banking industry and also focusing on digital. So we had a huge shift towards digital platforms, providing you 360-degree view of customers and their interactions. This is actually happening. Open banking is gaining traction. So open banking technology enable clients to easily consolidate and access their financial data from multiple institutions. So this is actually through APIs. Again, we're opening ourselves, providing excellent convenience. You can actually see some of that already in life in Singapore as well, in other parts of the world where you can, from also Poland, where I'm originally from, you can add all of your different accounts across financial institutions to your core app as well and see everything as well. We're seeing robotic process automation, driving efficiency, optimizing processes as well. Artificial intelligence for increased personalization and also decision-making, trends, identifying fraud, reducing fraud, also decisioning. You can see increasing amount of regulation and guidance around use of artificial intelligence in financial services industry as well. Some of the circulars also in Indonesia, but also Singapore, you can see it. There are more and more discussions also in the European Union to actually pass the first piece of legislation. Middle East is discussing theirs as well, so we're seeing a lot of that. Blockchain as well to safeguard data. This is actually happening as well, using blockchain as well. In terms of some of the key drivers, I'll go very quickly about COVID, and I'll only mention it here because it applies everywhere. COVID accelerated a lot of usage of digital data, artificial intelligence, purely because we couldn't do things the old way we were able to do it before we had all the lockdowns and so on. I don't really want to go back discussing that time because it wasn't a very nice time for anyone. But one thing it actually did, probably in a space of 2 years for a lot of organizations, not just banks, it accelerated their digital adoption. Probably in 2 years' time, they done more than in 10 years before that, right? Also, the key driver, enhancing customer experience, is a key driver to keep obviously your clients as well. Big data analytics. Okay, so in today's world, banking sector is striving to adopt full-fledged data-driven approach for growing their business and increasing customer satisfaction. And adoption of big data analytics has proven to be a great solution to do the same. So in the past, you've seen a lot of data across different organizations, multiple areas. Now it's all being consolidated and the data is actually being leveraged to deliver and support organizations across. Okay, key challenges. So now actually jumping on to taking on the governance, risk and compliance hat. Okay, the regulatory compliance. Okay, I think the pace of technology is actually way ahead of the speed of the regulators in any jurisdiction being able to cope with it and come with relevant regulation. So what will happening, especially in tremendously, I would say, important and growing markets like Indonesia, Vietnam, the Philippines, Thailand, and so on, the growth of the development in this space is much quicker than the regulators can actually keep up and provide, I would say, sound and properly thought out regulation. And what we're getting, the challenge here is, like in Indonesia, Vietnam, other places in Southeast Asia, also India, you name it, we're seeing that a lot of organizations are implementing solutions, and quite often they have to then backtrack because the regulator is coming back with actual new laws or guidance, because they can't keep up with the pace of change. And this is also due to scarcity of certain experts in those fields, and typically the regulators not being used to the fact that they need to ramp up the quality of their teams with actual technical experts more than ever. And same goes for security, right? The regulators are also exposed, the industries are exposed, security is becoming a huge thing, and due to the data and sheer amount of data being collected, banks and other industries are facing tremendous challenges. And adoption is another point as well. So I mentioned a lot about banking, but we will obviously share this presentation. But just very quickly, in terms of statistics, 71% of banks report that blockchain and smart contracts will be critical for their organizations. And what we'll see, we'll also see that this will be used overall for contracting in a lot of places. 70% of banks will invest in technologies to strengthen their competitive positioning. The business value of AI is in global banking will reach about 300 billion by 2030. The cost saving from banks' chatbot usage alone will reach about 7.3 billion between 2023 and 2025. Digital advertising and marketing are also growing quickly. 17% of organizations now commit more than 50% of their marketing budget to online media, which when I take from a context of Indonesia, right? The penetration of mobile phones, using different apps, also online shopping as well, e-commerce, you name it, all of those have marketing features in them, right? Digital banking stats predict that the total number of online and mobile banking users will exceed 3.6 billion by 2024. 35% of customers adopted online banking, with 30% specifically increasing their use of mobile banking. Over 3 billion in the estimated numbers of global users have access to the retail banking services through smartphones, tablets, PCs, smartwatches. Big data analytics in the banking market is expected to register compound growth of 22.97 up to 2026, and the global digital banking platform market is expected to reach 9 billion by 2026. 48% of bank executives believe that the new technologies such as blockchain and artificial intelligence will have the greatest impact on their banking sector, and 80% Indian corporate banks to leverage cloud by 2024. Even though I'm talking here about banking, this will lend itself to other industries as well. Why? Because quite often with a lot of the industries, banking does a lot of things that later are adopted in one shape or format by other industries as well. And sometimes it's vice versa as well. Right. Very quickly, I'm going to go through a few more industries as well. So pharmaceutical industry and life sciences. Here we're talking about telehealth, virtual detailing, or e-detailing, or remote detailing. Okay. We're talking about non-invasive patient screening or predictive diagnostics as well. Obviously, it will have its own challenges as well, how you're doing this remotely. Distribution and logistics industry, warehouse mobility solution. So transition from fixed desktop workstation to smartphones, mobile devices is major steps in gaining warehouse efficiency. Intralogistics management as well. Companies seeking to digitally optimize their intralogistics for many reasons, like lost components, vehicles that do not work, or insufficient service. So they're collecting lots of data to enable their value chain as well. They digitize the logistics. We're actually moving to digitally enabled logistics as well. And we're already seeing that with a lot of players across Southeast Asia. And again, Southeast Asia, with a lot of those things, we quite often forget that Southeast Asia actually is leading in a lot of those areas with the development. Southeast Asia probably had a lower starting base than, I would say, the rest of the world, but actually we're accelerating drastically, and in a lot of those spaces we're actually setting some trends. We probably, as Southeast Asia, whether this is Indonesia or other Southeast Asian countries, we don't get enough credit for it quite often, but we're actually pushing the boundaries. So if you look at the likes of Gojek, Grab, Ninja Van, Tokopedia, Bukalapak, Lazada, you name it, right? There's actually, we're setting a lot of trends here, purely because we're not, I would say, huge American corporation that's very well known here in Southeast Asia. Those companies are well known in Southeast Asia, but maybe not globally. People tend to forget that a lot of the trend setting is also happening here. So we need to remember about this one, because it also brings another challenge for us, that Southeast Asia is becoming an increased target of multiple attacks on all fronts as well. So please know that as well. Materials and chemicals industry. I think materials and chemicals industry and manufacturing, that space is very important for Indonesia. We tend to forget about that as well, that actually a lot of this is happening in Indonesia and Southeast Asia. And again, we're seeing synthetic biology. So sustainability claims, but also enable more flexible distributed production of chemicals, and in the right cases enable new markets and lower cost. 3D printing, again, as a trend in digitalization, is getting bigger and bigger, with new materials being used and new components being produced as well. This wouldn't be possible without the rise of digital. Materials informatics, applying machine learning to materials development. This obviously improves R&D as well. Plastic waste recycling, okay, growing concern, and we're actually seeing that a lot of technology is being applied to improve that as well. Automotive industry, another big thing as well. Obviously, I think a huge thing as well, and also one conversation I had recently in Indonesia about electric vehicles. Like them or hate them, obviously there's a big growth in that space as well, and it also brings a lot of enablement and enhancement in that technology. So we're seeing new as a service revenue stream. So as a service revolution transformed a number of industries, and we're also seeing this in automotive. More and more demand solutions and shared mobility services. This is obviously coming as well, depending on the country. Car connectivity, OTA, V2V, and more. So with 5G capabilities slowly being built out, the research on 6G already underway. Vehicle connectivity has been touted as a defining automotive trend for years, and this is on the growth as well, right? Driver vehicle interfaces and contactless tech. So touch screens are already used a lot, but obviously this is quite dangerous while you're driving, and there are obviously people who try to watch TV while driving as well. Maybe not the best thing, but now we're looking at new technologies, obviously, to make it safer as well, use and operate in some cars as well. I'll probably industrial products, again, autonomous operations of machinery, augmented reality, remote operations becoming the new normal, blockchain to shape aircraft manufacturing as well, right? So all of those technologies are being leveraged to actually improve this area, and highly critical, and we actually see a lot of that. So from a perspective of Indonesia, I'm expecting a lot of adoption over the coming years in the industrial sector as well, and similar also in Vietnam and Malaysia and Thailand as well. So all of those will be very relevant as well. Okay, so a bit of trends. Hopefully I didn't put everyone to sleep, but let's just look at artificial intelligence and machine learning, right? So where are we with the actual spend? Here you can see the spend on artificial intelligence in terms of revenue estimation in world market. So you can see artificial intelligence revenue by region, 2015 to 2026. Sorry, 2024. I'll obviously skip the rest of the world. What's interesting for us is Asia Pacific. And you can see the growth in Asia Pacific, and you can see where Asia Pacific is predicted to be next year, already this year and next year. It's huge. And again, that's why I'm saying Asia as the engine of growth for the world, and ASEAN being a, I would say, crucial component of it, we're seeing huge revenue and huge spend also on artificial intelligence, because this is happening across multiple areas, and we will outpace, if we haven't already, based on this, we will by the end of the year. Maybe we also have last year, but definitely Asia Pacific is overtaking even North America in this space, right? So this is a very important one, and I think very interesting in the context of our knowledge sharing today. So where are we with leaders in adoption of artificial intelligence? You can see here the top right corner, we've got the leading sectors. We can see the percentage of AI adoption, percentage of companies on the bottom axis, and on the top axis we can see future AI demand trajectory as well. So if we look at it, like I mentioned, financial services, leading sector, high tech and communications, transportation and logistics. Then we go through energy and resources, automotive, media, retail, healthcare, consumer pack, travel, tourism, professional services, education, and building materials and construction, right? Which definitely building materials and construction, this has very different usage of AI as well, but you would be surprised that even in production of concrete, AI is being used. So very important slide. Want to note that actually AI is being applied everywhere across our daily lives and industries as well, which again, this will pose not only some great opportunities, but it will also pose some threats, which I will get to in a second as well. How are companies using artificial intelligence and machine learning? You can see it here as well. Global data. So the chart represents the various ways organizations leverage AI to add value in their business processes. So we have detecting and deterring security intrusions. Fantastic, because actually, since we went digital and we are so digitally enabled, guess what? We created new risks to ourselves that we never had. Let's say, let's go back to, let's go back 20 years, or maybe 25 years. How many people had a smartphone? No one? Did we have any cyber threats that someone could hack your bank account, steal everything from you, commit fraud, double your, clone your identity? No, unless they took your physical ID and so on. Yeah, now we have all that. So yes, we created a lot of opportunities for ourselves. We're developing, but we created a whole new world of threats to ourselves as well. So now, a lot of people are also thinking how we can leverage artificial intelligence to really detect and deter security intrusions, threats as well. Resolving user technology problems, that's another one. Reducing production management work, gauging internal companies in using approved for example, solutions or vendors as well, using runbook automation, anticipating future customer purchases and spending behaviors, improving media buying, monitoring social media, tailoring promotions for trade, online, offline as well, financial trading as well, and automating call distribution as well, right? So we're covering information technology, marketing, finance and accounting, customer service, but also we're touching a bunch of other areas as well. And great, we're using it, but we actually open ourselves to new threats as well. Growth and challenges, and that's where we get to some of the issues as well. So most impact of artificial intelligence, machine learning, IT technology and telecommunications, 59%, business and professional services, 43%, customer service and financial services, 32%. And then if we look areas where AI is expected to drive revenue, right? Product innovation, research and development, yes, because we can make better products. Customer service, yeah, because a lot of people are trying to apply AI to actually service customers. Supply chain and operations, yeah, definitely so. And then what are the barriers for AI ML? So if you look at it, IT infrastructure, 40%, lack of access to talent, 34%, lack of budget for implementation, 30%, complications around policies, regulations, and rights, 28%. I think this one is very crucial also from the group here, looking from a GRC perspective as well, because I think people who are here, or some of the people who are here, will have to deal with regulations, policies at some point as well, and impact on customer expectations. So if we look at it, this was actually based, the percentages, on a survey of executives at 260 large enterprises worldwide, right? And 80% said they are investing in AI today. And 1 in 3 think the company will need to invest more over the next 36 months to keep pace with competitors. So if you look at it, all of the organizations that got surveyed across the 260, they are investing about 3.47 million on average each in AI technology. And for those in the Asia Pacific, the average investment is 8.25 million, which, small, not small, depends on the size of your organization. If you look at the average, I think it's a lot of money as well. Okay, so now let's get to probably where everyone is really interested in. Okay, what does that mean in practical terms, right? And that's where we get to the cybersecurity and privacy element of it. Why? Because, like I said earlier, we created this whole wonderful world of digital artificial intelligence and data, and we just created a whole new world of threats for ourselves. And cybersecurity threats were there before, but now they are in overdrive. We actually gave not only new areas to attack us at, but we also gave new solutions for people attacking us to actually exploit and use. So what are we looking at in terms of cybersecurity? Okay, so through 2025, 30% of critical infrastructure and organizations will experience a security breach, which is shocking and worrying as well. By this year, by end of this year, 20% of IT buyers with IT environments span disparate location, cloud, remote work, and devices will turn to network security as a service to ensure consistent protection, right? Because they can't cope. 2024, 30% of enterprises will adopt cloud-delivered secure web gateway, cloud access security brokers, zero trust network access, and firewalls as a service capabilities from potentially the same vendors to unify. 2023, 25% of the G2000 public cloud customers will subscribe to integrated risk management and customer insurance policies through shared fate risk programs to protect against sophisticated cyber attacks. By 2025, 25% of the Fortune Global 500 will employ blockchain-enabled customer data tokens and basic attention tokens to compensate customers for the gathering and use of their data. 2023, 55% of organizations will allocate half of their security budgets to cross-technology ecosystems platforms designed for rapid consumption and unified security capabilities to drive agile innovation. By 2026, 40% of global enterprises will incorporate cyber resiliency planning in response to transnational sanctions against countries that neglect overseas illegal cyber activities of their citizens. And by the end of 2023, which will be end of this year, modern privacy laws will cover the personal information of 75% of the world's population. And by 2024, organizations adopting cybersecurity mesh architecture will reduce their financial impact of security incidents by an average of 90%. Okay, bunch of numbers, bunch of stats. Okay, what does that mean? Very quickly, 7 challenges, opportunities, and trends to watch. that will impact cybersecurity as well. Increasing demand for electric vehicles. Okay, they will be also connected. New target as well. Increase in retail sales. Okay, we'll see more retail sales through new means as well, which can open new avenues of attacks as well. Growing energy consumption. Obviously, we're becoming more digital. We're using more artificial intelligence. We're using more data. And I think quite often people forget that we need electricity to actually power all this, right? So we're actually consuming more energy to power our new sophisticated infrastructure and lives as well, which will present some challenges as well. And if you want to look at the negative possibilities and impact of that, I highly encourage you to watch a movie called Black Hat, to see what are the negative impacts of someone actually hacking your critical infrastructure, like your power plants, right? And actually part of the movie is taking place in Indonesia, which is an extra nice one. Rising interest rates, again, obviously this will impact financial services sector economy as well. Declining healthcare spending, okay. We're expecting some form of fall in real term, given high inflation and slow economic growth as well. But again, we need to also think what will be, we're going to see way more of a slow economic growth in the Western world. Obviously, some of it will impact Asia. So we just need to pay attention to that one. Falling revenue in technology sectors, okay. You probably, all of you heard recently some announcements in terms of falling revenue and job cuts as well. I'm not going to name companies here as well, but I'm sure you saw it recently as well. And rise in tourism. So actually, the tourism is increasing back, rebounding after COVID as well. Again, this will pose some opportunities and threats as well for all of us as well. Right. Budget and cybersecurity predictions, right? So let's just look at the cybersecurity predictions. Okay, geopolitics, more cyber attacks. That means people will use digital data, artificial intelligence for more sophisticated attacks. Ransomware will continue to be an issue. It still is an issue, and it will only increase as well with those new tools. Cryptocurrency and the blockchain hacking will arise as well. Automation with a focus on artificial intelligence and intelligence and machine learning, definitely. There will be an increase in bot attacks. We're seeing that all the time. You can talk to anyone in your security operations center at your organization, or anyone who is in a security operations center, they will tell you. Expanding attack surfaces and expansion of Internet of Things. Yes, again, we just want to get more connected. Again, what we're going to do, we're going to give ourselves even more issues with Internet of Things, because we're going to plug everything to the internet. And guess what happens then? We all of a sudden, we have a washing machine that actually hackers can get into our infrastructure, or through a washing machine. Extreme example, but we actually had some discussions recently. For example, if you look at your CCTV, TV screens as well, everything's connected. We're giving people and hackers options to actually penetrate us as well. And then impact of an economic recession on cybersecurity. Let's see this one. My prediction is that Asia will continue spending on cybersecurity. The rest of the world probably will have to spend, because they will be pushed to it as well. But let's see how things develop. Okay, I'll go very quickly on this one, because probably a bit of a breather as well. I'll check the time where we are. Let's not forget one thing. We're talking here about the whole digital aspect, artificial intelligence, cyber, data, you name it, right? None of those will mean a thing if we don't have the right people, and if we're not upskilled as well. So people are talking that artificial intelligence will take our jobs, will make a lot of other things as well, will make people obsolete. No, right? Artificial intelligence is, it depends obviously how far we let it go, but it's only that, it's artificial. We need to remember about the people aspect here as well. And right now what we're seeing across cyber data, we're actually seeing a talent crunch as well. So even if you look at the recent technology layoffs, there might be in one area, but for example, cyber, we're seeing a lot of demand for cyber jobs as well, right? As you can see here, that we have got nearly 3.5 million open cybersecurity jobs unfilled this year that are still globally there, right? Okay, board perspective on cybersecurity. I'm probably going to very quickly mention to you that I'm not going to go line by line, but the board members, what we've seen from global surveys that we run and also surveys in Asia, board members are increasingly concerned about cybersecurity, the threats of artificial intelligence, the exposure that digital might be causing to them as well, and cyber, GRC, data privacy are actually at the forefront of discussions, and they are actually happening at board level. Something that, if you think about this X amount of years ago, that wasn't happening, right? That was left to your IT department. Board level would be never discussing this type of stuff. They are now, because guess what? Your critical infrastructure gets penetrated, taken over, artificial intelligence based malicious agents will be deployed. Guess what happens? You're toast, right? And then you'll have to pay. It's a ransomware. We've seen, we had cases across the board as well over the last couple of years that huge companies as well got attacked, got penetrated, and they were effectively victim to ransomware. And in some of those cases, artificial intelligence was deployed. In some of those cases, the breach happened internally, but in some of those cases, through phishing, for example, the social engineering, but in some of those cases, the attackers managed to get through their digital infrastructure as well, right? So we need to remember about this one, the threats that are there. Very quickly, okay, if you look at something that's, I think, very relevant to our topic here as well. So we ran a survey of the Gartner 2023 Board of Directors survey. 281 board directors and members of various boards across industries, geographies. Okay, they gave you a view, and you can see that here. Key findings from the survey: risk appetite and growth strategies. Okay, 64% expect to increase their risk appetite in 2023-2024. Okay, interesting. 46% of boards are willing to accept greater risk in expanding product lines to achieve increased growth. 48% of boards see recession and economic uncertainty as the biggest constraints to growth. And 89% of boards agree that they are in a post-digital world, i.e. digital is an implicit part of growth strategies, digital acceleration. Then if we look at the digital acceleration, 60% of boards have made the desired level of progress or achieved digital business optimization. 19% of boards have made progress toward or have achieved the digital business transformation. 30% of digital leaders have significantly advanced towards digital transformation. 71% of boards are currently altering or planning to alter the enterprise economic structure to DEA, sustainability, and DI. And then sustainability and DI, 80% of boards anticipate an increase in sustainability initiatives, investments in the next 2 years. 75% of boards anticipate an increase in DI initiatives investment in the next 2 years. 59% of boards cite employees as the top shareholders considering DEI while evaluating the organization, and 47% of society considers sustainability to be a substantial or significant extent during company evaluation, right? Fantastic. Everyone's talking about all of those points. A lot of those will be delivered using also digital as well. And the initiatives, again, more threats, more regulation, more discussion, more potential cybersecurity attacks as well. Okay, one to call out. Guiding principles for the board. So the National Association of Corporate Directors outlined 5 principles all corporate boards should consider as they seek to enhance their oversight of cyber risk.
Marek?
Yep.
Pardon me. Pardon to interrupt, but I don't know, in my screen, your screen is still on the slide with title Board Responsibility on Cybersecurity.
Is it?
Yep.
Can you see guiding principles?
No, in my screen still on the section of, slide number 28.
Paraki, are you seeing the same 28 or you from?
Yes, the same, still to 28. Maybe you stop share and share
Yeah.
again, Pak Marek.
Okay. What about now?
All good.
Slide
Yep.
30, right?
Yes,
Okay.
all good. Thank you.
Okay, so very quickly, so cybersecurity as a strategic risk. So legal ramifications, oversight, structure, and expertise. In terms of board should have adequate access to cybersecurity expertise. Discussions around cyber risk management should be given regular and adequate time on the board meetings as well. Risk management, board management discussions of cyber risk should include identification of which risks to avoid, accept, mitigate, or transfer, and measurement and reporting. Directors should set the expectations that management will establish an enterprise-wide as well, if you're obviously in that space, or GRC as well. I think the principles are quite similar as well. Okay. Let me just jump to the next slide, which just, okay. Very quickly, I will go through this. So we run actually if you look Protiviti, but also if you look at the CISO Priorities 2023 survey reveals cybersecurity leaders' thoughts about different cybersecurity projects, and this year's result provide an interesting view into what matters the most, right? So the most common trend is an overall focus on increasing efficiencies across current security tools. So high priority projects, integrating, automating cybersecurity capabilities with new and existing technologies, identifying compromised assets across the network, shift from legacy cybersecurity platforms to cloud native platforms, unifying threat visibility across all assets, IoT, containers, servers, okay? So the last 2 points very closely linked to digital, cloud native, IoT. Emerging priorities, right? 79% adopting or expanding threat hunting, 74% leveraging information from Mitre and AT&T and CK Matrix to help make cybersecurity decision, bringing part of their cybersecurity operations in-house, instrumenting zero trust strategies, cybersecurity, optimizing SOC alert management, and third-party supply chain risk management as well. Okay. And now again, linking to your posture investment priorities, cloud security apps service. Why? Because we have so much digital right now. We have so much more and more stuff running on the cloud, more and more apps, right? If I were to ask any of you probably to look at your smartphone, do you even remember how many apps do you have, right? How many of those potential apps you're also using? And here we have, again, 2 views, right? It's the internal view but also the external view, one within the organization, two outside, where we're actually touching the consumer client as well. Protecting against ransomware attacks, 74%, protecting user identities from attack and compromise. Again, this goes back to what I mentioned about data. Your identity and your user identity and all the data that goes with it as well on different levels, right, is super important. It's super valuable as well, right? Security of apps, code, APIs sourced from other software supply chain as well, right? Security of applications developed internally, security of our endpoints as well, that's more physical, and then security of our email services as well, right? Lots of different stuff. All of this is digital, right? Effectively, if we were not digital, cybersecurity could pack and go home, right? So I'm wondering that at one point probably we'll might end up having, I don't know, for every user of cyber services, we'll probably have 2 cybersecurity guys. A joke, but I think we're actually getting so many services, we're getting so digital that let's put it this way. If you're interested in cybersecurity now, it's the time to get into it. And same with GRC as well, because this will only increase over time. And we also need to be ready to understand the new threats, use the new tools as well. And you can see here with the data don't lie. We're actually seeing this really happening. Okay. Very quickly, now I want to use the last couple of minutes before we go to Q&A, because you might be interested. Okay, so what did we really see in 2022? I like talking with data, so let's talk about data, about what we've actually seen. Okay. I'm going to skip North America, Europe. Let's just look at Asia Pacific, right? In Asia Pacific, in APAC, right? That's Asia and the Pacific, includes Southern Asia, Eastern Asia, Central Asia, obviously Southeast Asia, and so on, right? So what did we see in 2022? Okay, frequency of incidents, 4,114, 283 with confirmed data disclosure, right? Across organization, across industries, right? Top patterns, what did we see? Social engineering, basic web application attacks, and system intrusion represented 98% of all of the breaches across APAC. Threat actors, external, 98%, 2% were actually internal. Actor motifs, right? So 72%, they wanted to get the credentials, okay? So it might be good to actually advise your colleagues to change their password from the word password 1234 to something different, okay? Internal, secrets, and others. And then data compromised, basic web application attacks and social engineering continue to persistent threat for this region. Meaning, we get an email that says from CEO, because it's very sophisticated and is looking from the CEO, please click on our newsletter or provide a credential, re-authenticate or something. Okay, they've got your details, they've got your credentials, right? So we're seeing a lot of that. Social engineering, right? Okay, now average total cost of data breach by country or region. Okay, I don't have the country by country for Indonesia. I think probably we can dig out the data set, and this is in USD millions, right? So in millions of US dollars. Okay, average total cost of a single data breach by country, right? Let's look at ASEAN, 2.87 million USD on average, right? And as you can see, compared to other countries, okay, it's better. But what's happening from another data set, I can tell you, ASEAN is increasingly targeted. And we had this conversation also with Pakraki some time ago as well. Indonesia is actually, now I need to check the data for the last couple of months, but Indonesia was actually #1. It was very targeted through multiple attacks as well, right? So we need to remember that actually that probably the people who are on this call are actually at the forefront of understanding this and seeing that, and obviously you guys have to act and advise your colleagues, your boards of directors, your management as well, to look into that, because we are really actually targeted as well. Okay, number of breaches, industry. Okay, public administration, unknown, meaning it wasn't classified, professional, healthcare, finance. Obviously finance always probably the easiest target, always not the easiest target, but the most highly attacked one. Information, education, mining, manufacturing, retail, we go down. Agriculture still. So agriculture, I'm also expecting significant growth as we go through modernization of agriculture, right? You'll see a substantial rise in agriculture. Why this is crucial as well? Because agriculture is responsible for production of food, right? I would say you attack and you effectively impact negatively production of food, we have a big problem then, right, as well, right? So this is happening as well. Global average total cost of data breach, 4.35 million per single breach, right? Obviously most expensive in healthcare, financial services as well. You don't have to obviously be reminded of some of the recent breaches as well. Also in government sector, well, I think we all remember when the Indonesian ID numbers leaked out as well, obviously that breach as well, or a big case in Singapore where the medical data was actually exposed as well a couple of years ago, including, I think, the Prime Minister as well. So that was obviously quite a big case as well. Okay. I'm not going to go through all of those as well because we touched upon that, and I think we're actually getting closer to the time to open to Q&A, but we've got some more data as well. But I just want to sum up a few points as well. So we've got the frequency across the different industries. I will obviously share it, what was happening in terms of frequency, top patterns, threat actors, and so on. So you'll be able to have a read through it if you're interested as well. But what I want to say as well, also breach patterns, industry agnostic, we will share as well if anyone wants to read through it, if you're into that. And we'll get into Q&A in a second. But what I want to say effectively, just to recap, 3 areas: digital in a broad sense, artificial intelligence, data, lots of opportunities. We opened to improve all of that across different areas. We created a lot of issues that will pose challenges for us in terms of GRC from a regulation policy standpoint, from cybersecurity of new agents, new avenues to attack us and steal data, information, impact us negatively, and also new tools being leveraged to conduct attacks as well, like, for example, artificial intelligence, machine learning. And the last one, privacy, which links also to the data. Our privacy and data is everything. Quite often we trade our privacy and data for convenience, and we just need to be prepared that compounded with artificial intelligence and cyber attacks can actually give us a lot of harm. So we need to be quite vigilant as well, and how we're actually using the tools as well. So that just as a bit of a recap, and I do apologize for my voice. I've been doing a lot of speaking 4 days before this as well. But I would like to open this to Q&A, and please shoot any questions that you have at me. If I can't answer them or we run out of time, we will try to capture them and answer them via email. And if the questions are in Bahasa by any chance, so if someone can obviously please to help translate so that we make this obviously all inclusive, because I want to make sure that if someone's not comfortable with in English, they should ask in Bahasa, and just please translate and I'll just grab the question.
Okay. Marek, is it okay? We open for the Q&A session, right?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you so much, Marek, for sharing the insight. Thanks also for sharing the informations and trends. And maybe I would like to also highlight some key takeaways, like the Asia is still the engine growth, especially for the investment in AI. And also there are some slides that share that the leading sector in the adoption of AI, yeah, most of it still in the financial sector. Yeah, growth, the technology is also lead to some risk, especially the cyber risk and data privacy risk. And also surprised that now that 80% of company invest in AI or machine learning. Pardon me, technical issue. Okay, and the also one of the issue I think you have shared as well regarding the gap workforce in the security talents, or maybe here in Indonesia we call it as a digital talent gap in general. So I think that's the recap I take from the survey. Thank you so much for sharing. Anyway, before we start from the question in the chat box, I would like to open to the participant or the board of ISACA Indonesia chapter. If there is any question, please feel free to open mic. Baraki, maybe?
May I, Pak Erik?
Sure, please go ahead.
Before Pak Chandra Yulistia, Pak Marek, we would like to get the insight from you, and thank you for all the insights. A lot of interesting information that you shared to us this evening. But one question: how is the government and regulators doing in other countries to face this cybersecurity challenge? I think in Indonesia we are still trying to improve how we react to all the breaches happening, and new regulations keep coming. Can you share, Pak Marek, whether one of the country or one of the best country that you have the knowledge of? Thank you, Pak Marek.
Sure, Paraki. So I'll give you. So the spectrum is very wide, right? So we go on a spectrum from, depending on the cyber maturity of the country as well, how they're dealing with that as well. So if you look at, for example, I don't know if any of you, well, I'm sure some of you did, but there's something called cybersecurity maturity matrix, right? Globally, which ranks the countries based on their cybersecurity maturity. I'll give you three examples. Last time I checked, the numbers might have changed a bit. So I'll take my original homeland where I was born, Poland. So for those of you who follow football, then obviously Polandia and Lewandowski, right? I'm sure I hear that quite often when I'm in Jakarta. It's a very good conversation when I'm in my Bluebird to the airport. Just joking aside, so Poland is probably around the 20th on the cybersecurity matrix, meaning the higher you are, the more mature you are. You have the more obviously policies, procedures, talent, solutions, and so on. Singapore is about 28th last time I checked, I think, and Indonesia is 84 globally, right? So I think part of the problem, Paraki, and boils down to the point that there has to be enough investment across a couple of areas, right? It has to be investment on the government side. It has to be investment in the talent pool and education and upskilling of your workforce and making sure that also this type of work is desired, right? This type of skill set is desired, the knowledge is desired, and it's actually accessible. And then the both private and public industries obviously need to focus on that one as well. When it comes to the actual policies, we have a full spectrum as well. We have areas where countries are more mature, they have specific regulation and they're quite quick with the regulation, or if they're not quick, at least they are investing in creating those regulation. Up to countries that, for example, are much slower and they have multiple revisions, and actually the industry is way ahead of them, and then they catch up and then they create a lot of issues. And I think that's quite common, unfortunately, in Southeast Asia, because one thing is historically the governments didn't invest in that area, in their skill set or in the right people and the knowledge. And I think this is slowly changing, but I think it's too slow compared to the pace of the industry. That's one. And then we've got in Southeast Asia, as always, we have one country that stands out, which is obviously Singapore, because they've been always putting money into it and investing into that as well, and they stay very close to the industry, and also because it's a very small country, so it's easier to manage all of this because you don't have that many levels of government and legislation as well, right? When you look at Indonesia, for example, this is way more cumbersome as well. And also when you look at, for example, mainland China, because of the layers of the government, provincial, regional, local, central, you name it, it's way more complicated, and there might be interpretations if there's no clarity as well. So I think the spectrum is very wide. I just think the governments also need to upskill themselves, and they need to understand as well that that cyber is not just something that's out there. It's actually a crucial part of government's responsibility as well. A lot of them know it and they have it, but the policies and legislation needs to go with it as well. And sometimes I think there needs to be more speed and responsiveness, and also consultations with the industry as well. Governments should not be just deciding on the policies on their own. They should be making this inclusive, because where will you have the top experts, right? So if you want to do some legislation, let's say for financial services industry, where will be your top experts? Will they be in the government, or will they be in the market, right? So you need to engage the market. And similar for construction, manufacturing, food production, you name it, right? You need to consult the industry. And I think this is one crucial bit that is lacking. If I compare to 2015, right? Indonesia made huge improvements, the rest of Southeast Asia as well, and definitely this acceleration is going ahead, and you can clearly see it, right? I just think that there's still some improvement to be done. But one thing is also we need to remember the legislation can't be too heavy to be an overburden as well.
Thank you, Pak Marek.
You're welcome, Paraki.
Thank you, Pak Marek and Pak Raki. Okay, maybe I would like to over to the next question. I saw Pak Chandra Yulistia raise a hand. Please open mic, Pak Chandra.
Thank you. Hi, Marek.
Hello, Pak Chandra.
Hi. Just one question. Do you have in the survey, or do you have any information that the campaign to introduce cybersecurity, the emerging technology, using the positive risk perspective by saying like benefit to the life in emerging technology, benefit of having cybersecurity rather than the risk of being insecure, the risk of being early adopter of emerging technology? Because in Indonesia, we can say the board of director culture is risk avoider, but there are benefit gainers. They like to talk about benefit rather than talk about risk. What do you have any to say on global board of directors perspective on the benefit side rather than the risk side? Thank you.
Yeah, so I think I think quite often, while we're mentioning the risks, because actually, if you look at it, a lot of the discussions quite often focus purely on the benefits, right? So if I understood it correctly, like there's actually a lot to talk about the benefits, but quite often people forget about the risks of this one. And if you go to some of those meetings, or even some that I attended with clients, or any other C-level meetings or management meetings, right? A lot of the discussion has very positive spin most of the time. And there's typically one person, which quite often it's either the main CIO, or they bring a CISO, or you name it, who's actually bringing a bit of the perspective. Okay, we need to think about the risks, right? And there were some really, I would say, really heated discussions in a lot of places like that. People had to be actually educated about the risks because they purely looked at the positives, right? So I would say most of the time, and also meetings that I was in with clients, right? Everyone talks about the positive stuff, which is fantastic. I fully understand, but we also need to consider the threats as well. So if we dug out the surveys and all of the information we have and aggregated it, actually I'm quite confident that you would have 80% purely positive views, which is just a normal standard trend. So yes, there is, to answer your question, there is a lot of data on that. But if you want, you can we can get more stuff over email, and we can always discuss. So feel free to, obviously, whether through direct or through the team from ISACA, you can obviously just ping me, and we can obviously look at that and discuss more. That's absolutely not a problem, or we can share as well.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Just one final statement. We need to also balance we are from the GRC community. We need to balance the information for the board, not just saying the loss that going to happen if you not manage your risk, but we also need to talk or to introduce benefit of managing risk. The benefit of managing risk. That's I think the other things to balance the information for the board. Thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right. They actually should have two views as well, right? But I think quite often there's one thing, and I think that kind of, if you look from human behavior, right, there are two things that drive human behavior: inspiration or desperation. And actually, if you look at it, what's the one that drives people more? Inspiration? Oh, I'm inspired, really, but okay, maybe I can put it off to tomorrow. I'm still inspired, but okay. Will you die if you don't do it today? Maybe not. So the inspiration varies, right? Desperation is the one that drives people, right? Really. And that's quite often, unfortunately, I think, comes from human behavior. People are more, majority of people, I'm not saying everyone, but majority of people on this planet are more prone to do something because of desperation, right? People don't file their taxes because they are inspired to pay their income tax, right? People file their taxes because they know that if they don't file it and tomorrow's the deadline, they will get a fine and they got the taxman on their door, right? Depending whether you've got auto filing and so on, just an example, right? So I absolutely get your point, but I also know where obviously the perspective of the looking at the risks is coming from.
Thank you, Marek. Thank you so much for the question as well, Pak Chandra. Quite insightful one to see, not only from one point of view, but also both sides, the benefit and the risk.
Yeah. But Eric,
Marek.
just one thing. I think we've got 2 questions in the chat, right?
Yep. We're going to there. Thank you, Marek. We would like to see the first question from Pak Anggoro. Maybe along the way, please, if there is any question from all the participants, to put in the chat box or open mic. Okay, the first question, Pak Anggoro said about how much China and India dominate revenue in Asia Pacific from artificial intelligence and the from AI and ML. Yep. Okay, more than 50% is that the question from Pak Anggoro.
Yeah.
Please, if you would like to respond.
Yeah. So thank you for the question. And yes, that's absolutely right. If you look at it, they do. And more than 50%, depends which statistics you read, right? So I will say something not very politically correct. It depends who's writing the statistics, right? If it's a statistics that I would say due to political reasons skewed to a certain area of the world, right? It might say that actually they cover less than 50%, right? If the statistics is actually was done in Asia, you'll probably get a more accurate statistic showing you the right number as well, right? And there are 2 drivers that those 2 countries actually account for that, right? We all know obviously the usage of AI and ML in China from government, private sector, entertainment, you name it, right? So I probably don't have to explain that. One area that needs though a bit more explanation is India, because if you look at it, the Western world, if you take America, Europe, and so on, for many years was outsourcing a lot of work to India, and they were training a lot of people in India, and there was a lot of investment in India. And what do people do in India? They learn, they upskill themselves, they created their own companies, they actually build their own solutions as well, right? A lot of the time, actually, that was supported by investments through outsourcing and software engineers that actually was coming to a big degree initially from the US, right? So yes, they cover a lot of this spending, and a lot of it was actually done in such a way because they were the outsourcing, or India at least was. So I think unfortunately for now to the disadvantage of Indonesia, but I think also I'm expecting to see Southeast Asia with Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, kind of seeing substantial acceleration in that space as well. But right now, yes, Asia, China, more than 50%. Depends which stats we read, right?
Okay. Thank you, Marek. Thank you. Hope it answered your question, Pak Anggoro. Thank you for the question. And we would like to move to the second question from Pak Zaki Balbait. It mentioned that in one of the slides, Marek, it is mentioned about the AI revenue. What does the slide indicate? Pak Zaki question about, is it about the additional revenue generated with the addition of AI-enabled system into the business, or is it basically talk about revenue generated from AI technology provider itself?
Yeah. So it's actually not the additional money generated by AI, because that's very difficult to quantify right now. You would have to have the data at the granular level of organization. Let's put it this way. I can flip it differently. Let's call it spend on AI, right? So revenue that actually AI providers and AI, obviously, let's call it spend. Maybe it's less confusing, right? So the money that was actually spent overall on AI, because your spend is someone else's revenue, right?
Yep, clear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hope it answered the question, Pak Zaki. Please, Bapak
Yes,
Ibu.
okay, thank you for your explanation. So I think I got it right.
Yeah. I think it's a bit confusing because
Yeah,
it was written from a specific angle. It's an extract, but thank you
Yeah.
for that. I think we'll make it clearer for the future. Well, I think if there are no other questions, I think just one more thing I would like to mention.
Pardon, Pak Marek.
Yeah.
There are appear one question.
Okay,
If you
cool.
don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
Yep. The question from Pak Reza Amini. Pak Reza, would you mind to open mic to directly question to Marek?
Just that like the like my question in the chat box. What application do you think it's highly for you to recommend? Yes, just like the question in the chat box.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, so that really depends what you want to focus on, right?
On cybersecurity, yeah.
Okay. Well, cybersecurity. Well, where should we start? Cybersecurity from a perspective of advising of overall cybersecurity solution, technical elements on penetration testing or operations of security operations center, application of AI in cybersecurity. We can go along like I think let's put it this way. You'll need a lot of hours and a lot of time. I don't know if one lifetime will be enough. But what I would say, right, from cybersecurity, I'll start this way. What might be very interesting, obviously, if the subject is of interest to you, the whole element around penetration testing ethical hacker would be of interest as well. Obviously, if you're looking at specific certifications from OWASP as well, right? In terms of obviously a lot of the certifications and trainings that actually ISACA provides are obviously of very high quality as well. And I know that there were ISACA was running in the past introductions to cyber and then AI and cyber as well. I think it might just vary country by country as well. Definitely, I would be looking at certifications in cloud security, right? Because let's face it, right? Everyone wants to move to cloud, and you'll need cloud security certifications, cloud security engineers, cloud security architects as well. If you look at the landscape, more and more banks are talking about cloud native and moving purely to cloud. So who's going to ensure security of that? So then on the back of that, I will be going, okay, cloud security, penetration testing, overall architecture certifications, then obviously looking at the critical frameworks as well, like if you're looking obviously COBIT and certifications in that space, ITIL obviously typically as well. Maybe that's not that much about cyber, but that's obviously useful as well. It really depends what you want to focus on. from the context of Indonesia and cybersecurity, I would start and definitely look into cloud security with specific focus, and this is no advertising, actually on AWS. And why am I saying AWS and certifications in relation to cloud security and good understanding of AWS is because Jakarta is one of the 10 strategic sites for AWS in APAC, right? Microsoft and Google are still, I would say, catching up a bit. So that would be my view on that one.
Okay, thank you, Marek.
No problem.
Thank you, Parisa, for the question. Thank you also for the response, Marek. I do agree, but basically, I just would like to respond that, yeah, this cloud security is a good idea. I think it's in line with the one of your slide tell about the posture investment priorities for 2023 that says about 75% security of cloud services is one of the rising trend this year. So in line with the survey as well. Okay, I think that's the last question from the chat box. Please, if there is any question directly to Marek, please open your mic from the participant or from the board. Meanwhile, while waiting for the other question, if there is any point from you, Marek.
Yes, so I think 2 points from me, right? And I always say that one is obviously fantastic that we have the ISACA group here, and I think ISACA members of ISACA obviously are at the forefront, and to a degree you're defining and you're influencing obviously what's happening in that space in Indonesia. Second point is there's actually ASEAN and Indonesia. There's a lot that can be done in this space when it comes to cyber, data, digital, and we're going to see huge developments as well, right? So I think we all need to be prepared. Prepared to be probably amazed how those developments will look like. We also need to consider that certain countries might be more advanced as well, but if I look specifically at Indonesia, now even taking Southeast Asia out of it, but purely Indonesia, I think Indonesia needs to grow its pool of talent and investment in that space, because the demand and opportunity is huge in Indonesia. But I think also ISACA and similar organizations also need to influence to a degree and inform also the government and educational institutions that actually it's important, right? And there should be more investment in that space. And I think also Indonesia should be open in some foreign talent in that space to upskill the local teams as well. I don't mean like bringing foreign talent that obviously will just overtake the sector. I mean like looking at having people who can also help to develop the industry, the sector, and the skill sets as well, which I think sometimes is quite difficult, because people tend to I think probably people think that, okay, why should we be focusing in that area on Indonesia? Maybe that's not important and so on, but it's actually critically important for the future of Indonesia, and obviously that's something to be considered of, especially with the huge population penetration of mobile growing infrastructure. So we just need to be conscious of that one, and that's my remark as well. And I think the more connections and discussions member of ISACA at all levels can have with government bodies at all levels and educational institutions, the better. And I think if you guys can obviously get involved with those, even at local level discussions, that actually always helps as well.
Wow, Thank you so much. I'm considered as a closing remark from you, Marek.
Okay.
But I basically, before we go into the next section, I do agree with the second point, especially when you talk about the talent gap. Basically, one of your slide also tells about that, that all the cybersecurity survey tells about that the gap security talent in every country, and it also happened for us in Indonesia. So we have an issue about the demographic bonus in 2045, and the same issue regarding to this cyber talent, or we are here in Indonesia to call it as a digital talent, the gap of the digital talent in general. So if you don't mind, just a bit, maybe this is the question from my side. Is there any point of view from Asia Pacific, Marek, that you can share with us about how we can deal with this kind of issue, if maybe it also can come to our insight here in Indonesia?
Yeah. So one thing is, obviously, if you look at it, so I'll play it a bit from a perspective of Poland, for example, when good fair amount years ago, when I was still in, for example, high school. In Poland, we had something called polytechnics, right? But the polytechnics were there was a big part of them actually very focused on technical side, and you had effectively IT schools, right? That would be teaching specific curriculum as well, and building the interest in those specific fields as well, right? And if you look at it as well, it was at the time, obviously, post transformation, after the fall of the Soviet Union, and obviously like up in the early 90s and then late 90s as well, you had a lot of people doing that, and there was definitely investment and focus on this, or the investment, well, very limited investment, but there was definitely desire to go into this. And I think that's similar if you look at India as well. If you looked at some surveys a couple of years ago, what was the #1 desired job in India, right? People wanted to be a software engineer, right? Typically, right? There was, because of the investment and the desire, people wanted to actually do it. And I think in Indonesia, probably what needs to happen, there has to be from ground level, there needs to be option from the youngest age, obviously, to get into this field and then go through specialized curriculum as well. And you also need to have investment in those curricula, the centers, the enablement as well, and also support from both the government sector as well as private to do it. And right now, to be perfectly honest, if you asked me, right, which university should be recommended for example, for someone in Indonesia to go on a path of cybersecurity development or digital skills development, or AI building, ML, software engineering, and so on, I wouldn't be able to tell you, right? So my question would be, is there also enough visibility within Indonesia about the importance of the sector and the options available to people in Indonesia as well, right? And I think that should be a step as well. Obviously, under Digital Indonesia and other initiatives, I know obviously the government is moving it along, but I think there needs to be more done to also pass the information to young Indonesians that actually this is a viable and important career path or a business path, and they want to go into entrepreneurship and do it as well. And it's actually fulfilling, and it's important. It's not just some guy sitting somewhere in a dark room writing some code, but it's actually strategically important, and it will get only more important over time. But saying that, obviously, let's not forget about the real economy. That obviously, I think this needs to be that digital, everything to do with digital and all of that needs to go on par with the real world economy, because I always say digital in any aspect that also includes cyber and so on, they're there to serve a purpose, right? If the purpose is technically to make our life easier and enhance our lives, they are not purpose in itself, right? So we also need to remember about it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Marek, for sharing your insight. That basically, we are here also in Indonesia. We have, if I'm not mistaken, we have some roadmap from the government to deal with that kind of issue. Hope we can see some development. Maybe one of the idea also considerate in the roadmap. Okay, and I think back again, this is also homework for every part here in Indonesia, not only for the government, but for all of us, especially we are here in the association of one of the IT GRC association to bring our advocacy part to discuss with every single stakeholder that possible to support this kind of initiative. Thank you so much once again, Marek, for the great presentation, for sharing the insight from Asia Pacific and the global as well. Much appreciated for every point. Maybe we already get your point. I would like also to invite the board of ISACA if there is any closing remark from the board, or maybe Paraki before we hand over to MC.
Yes, just would like to again say thank you, Marek. Very interesting insights. And hopefully the next session will be offline in Indonesia, ya, Marek, ya. So we can see you offline.
Gladly, I'll gladly run that in. And thank you once again for inviting me, and thank you everyone for taking your time in your evening that you could be probably spending with your families or having coffee or some makan as well. So I hope at least it was interesting, right? And I appreciate your time, and definitely, Paraki, I'll take that as an invite, and I'll take you upon that one. And I will see you guys next time in Jakarta for that one, and hopefully get to talk to some of the members over a cup of coffee as well following the discussion.
Yes. Right. Yes, of course. Okay, Pak Erik, I think since it's already 9 o'clock, and I believe it's 10 for you, Pak Marek, in Singapore.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think we can close the session. Thank you again, Pak Marek.
Thank you very much, everyone. Right.
Thank you, Pak Marek. Sekali lagi terima kasih juga untuk audiens yang sudah hadir dan untuk beberapa poin yang sudah disampaikan via open mic dan via chat box. Oke, kalau tidak ada poin tambahan lagi, saya izin untuk menutup webinar ini dan over ke host dan MC-nya, Mbak Rifko, over to you.
Oke, terima kasih banyak Pak Erik dan terima kasih Pak Marek. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak at our event. Also, thank you so much Pak Erik for bringing the session more interactive. Before the session ends, we will take the documentations. Bapak Ibu, apabila berkenan, mohon untuk menyalakan video. Dokumentasi akan dimulai dalam hitungan ke-5. Kita mulai dari halaman pertama dulu. Saya hitung dalam ketiga. 1, 2, 3. Oke, next. 1, 2, 3. Oke, sudah. Terima kasih banyak Bapak Ibu atas waktunya. Sampai bertemu lagi di MTS bulan Juli. Selamat malam semuanya. Good evening, Marek.
Selamat malam.
Thank you.
Bye.
Terima kasih.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marek.